Ready? Can you make a sound check? Ja. Vasa outside the city of Lund in the South Swedish landscape of Scania in 1973. Nowadays, apart from my job here, I work as an illustrator and artist in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, where my child also lives. I have lived in Stockholm since 1993, and my child was born in 2003. There are lots of threes in my life. Do you know, as a fact, that 10% of all numbers end with the number 3? And that 3 is the second most popular number after 7. 110 is the least popular number. Enough about my history, though. Let's talk more about history in general. There are always different ways of telling stories. The brief history of myself that I just told you seems like a mythology only relevant for some of us here, depending on the amount of universality we are able to ascribe it with the help of our imagination. The particular kind of history writing we are used to learn in school is said, according to itself, to have been invented by the Greek aristocrat Herodotus in the 5th century BC, with the same kind of imagination that has always generated the writing of history and transformed our mythological understanding of the world into stiff, formalized records. Herodotus is said to be the first one able to distinguish real history from mythological delusions, at least according to his own writings. In a similar way, approximately at the same time, Plato was the first one to distinguish the real ideal world from the world poisoned by our subjective delusions, as perceived by our senses. Reason as the ideal, emotion and desire what distorts its perfect image. Plato also replaced the mythological understanding of the world with the language of mathematics as the discursive foundation of philosophy, as the formula to reach the ultimate truth about everything. It took 2,500 years before Kurt Gödel, in her incompleteness theorem in 1931, proved that mathematics, bivalent logic, or any other formalized system of communication couldn't, under any circumstances, reach the ideal of truth as stipulated by Plato, since even the most intricate and advanced systems in that case would have to prove themselves. This would be like if you are yourself and the one analyzing yourself at the same time, even the part of yourself that makes this analyze. Kurt Gödel died of starvation in 1978. She was suspicious of being food poisoned and only trusted her husband to cook for her. After her husband Adele was hospitalized, Gödel refused to eat. Gödel's suspiciousness is believed to be a product of paranoid delusions. Paranoia and the skill to establish patterns in formal logic are basically two sides of the same coin, the difference between them only contextual. In logic, the casual conclusions are based on an established agreement, a convention that most of us are familiar with and can agree on. For example, this one. In paranoia, the conclusions are unconventional and does not relate to established, commonly accessible schemes. Auditory sensations could, for example, be interpreted as voices that no one else can hear. An arbitrary occurrence of certain things in the environment could be interpreted as predictions of the future or a global plot, a conspiracy. In many cases, what once appeared to be a paranoid delusion later becomes conventional truth. The common delusion of the mind being controlled by machines, microchips, etc., that seemed absurd 100 years ago is less controversial today, when every word you say, every move you make, every step you take is watched by the cloud. In places where schemes of logic reason are not yet established, the trait of seeing unconventional patterns is often considered a significant value, like in the old Germanic Suebi tribe, where shaman priestesses predicted the future with the help of willow twigs. Can there be off light also, perhaps? Thank you. From the predictions, important decisions were made, such as if the chief Ariovist should decide to battle the Romans or not. The name of my home country, which in our language is called Sverige, means the land of the Suebi. So does Switzerland. In our days, the future is read with the help of mathematical algorithms to analyze consumer habits, the development of stocks, where the next terror attack will take place, or when the big meteor will destroy our planet. Since mathematics is still quite a blunt tool to analyze the entire complexity of all possible things that can or cannot happen, these predictions fail most of the time. But since they accord to a scheme, we don't care very much about their inaccuracy. To read the future in willow twigs, on the other hand, is considered superstitious. Paranoia is one of the basic symptoms of schizophrenia. When Gödel died, the greatest logician that have ever lived on our planet weighed only 29 kilos. Gödel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This according to the first sentence in the Gospel of Johannes. Johannes was Jesus' closest disciple, the only one who did not abandon him at the sight of crucifixion, and the one he called his brother right before he died. Even if I don't claim to be Jesus, which would be another quite common symptom of schizophrenia, my brother is called Johannes. And he's not here now, unfortunately. When the disciple Johannes said, the word, it's a translation from the Greek logos. Logos does not exactly mean word in the definition we are used to, but rather means language, discourse, or a rational discourse, such as Aristotle's Platonic formalization of language into logic. Heraclitus, a pre-Socratic philosopher, also known as the weeping or the obscure, was the one who introduced the term logos in philosophy. For him it meant the force that governs everything, or rather how the force which governs everything is described in language. Johannes probably used it in the meaning the word of God, quite similar to Heraclitus' definition. The word of God was in this case a metonymy for Jesus, in the same way as Buddha is a metonymy for Siddhartha Gautama, as the one who pronounces the force which governs everything into language. There is little doubt that Jesus, Siddhartha, or the Suebi oracles would be diagnosed with schizophrenia today, according to the DSM-5 standards, like people who say that they are Jesus. But Jesus himself would probably not disagree, though. God itself can never be diagnosed, apart from the bearded psychopath we think about when we hear the word God today. Any meaning of the word, may it be Allah, Buddha, Brahman, the Higgs particle, 1 + 1, or love, is something that surpasses what we are able to pronounce in our techniques of communicating. The sounds from our mouths to our ears, from our pens or keyboards to our eyes. God, or whatever we call this basic reason of anything, is not only the propellant of these activities, but also its mother and its mother's mother. At the beginning of any story that we tell, any mythology or fairy tale that is meant to describe how it all happened is the word. To tell these stories, we first need the word. So let us take it from the beginning, or at least a somehow conditioned beginning. The word is Stockholm. Stockholm was founded in 2052, probably on a cold winter day, by a man called Birger Jarl. My hometown Lund was founded in the 4th century, when people in what would later be called the Stockholm area still lived in the trees, ate fleas from each other's backs, and were chased by snakes. Bremen is around 1,200 years old. And this is how the cities of Stockholm, Bremen, and Lund are situated from a geographical aspect. Lund and Scania has only been Swedish since 1658 and the peace treaty in Roskilde. Before that, it was a part of Denmark. East Denmark, it was called. The reason Denmark lost Scania was ice. 20 years after the peace treaty in Roskilde, Denmark tried to liberate the tormented population of Terra Scania from the Swedish occupation. The final battle took place outside my hometown in the legendary Battle of Lund. This battle still counts as the most devastating in the history of Scandinavia. 70% of the soldiers from both sides died. Lots and lots of other people died who were not soldiers. The reason Denmark lost the battle was, again, ice. A bit more than 6 years ago, I went to Bremen for the first time for my test lecture and interview here at the HFK. Since my test lecture, which was in 2012, I always show an image of my uncle Erik in my lectures, and here he is again. When I went to Bremen this first time, I took the train from Lund to Copenhagen, where I changed to the ICE train to Hamburg. ICE means Intercity Express, for you who don't know, and is the premium line of trains here in Germany. Sadly, there are no ICEs anymore between Copenhagen and Hamburg, only a Danish train called EC, which is not very premium, is always overcrowded, and always late. Before my first trip to Bremen, I made some research about the city and realized that also Bremen belonged to Sweden once. And even if Bremen, unlike us, have released itself from this unfortunate occupation. Bremen became Swedish through the Westphalian Peace Treaty in 1648, only 10 years before the peace treaty in Roskilde. So Lund and Bremen became Swedish approximately at the same time. The peace treaty of Westphalia was signed in Münster and Osnabrück, which are 2 towns just over an hour from here. And the treaty meant the end of a 30 years war, which was mainly a war between Protestant and Catholics, where Sweden represented the Protestants, a rather ruthless brand of Protestant extremism. Our queen, Christina, who signed the treaty, later converted to Catholicism, though, but the country remained Protestant. Today, Protestant is not very present in the Swedish society, where most people instead confess to the churches of logic, particle physics, Darwinism, and cash. Some significant Lutheran qualities still remain, though. The perverted travail pour la travail mentality and the continuous prosecution of people suffering from this perverted mentality. For example, until 1975, people diagnosed with mental illness were methodically sterilized. Mental illness was quite a wide definition back then that could also, in some cases, embrace divergent political opinions, such as anarchism or communism. Compared to other Swedish monarchs, Christina, also called King Pantless, was quite good. She imported the French philosopher René Descartes to her court in Stockholm. Christina forced Descartes to get up in the middle of the night to discuss philosophy with her. Not being used to the chilly winters of the north, Descartes quickly caught pneumonia and died. we can say that Queen Christina killed Descartes with ice. But Descartes had already caused a considerable amount of damage, most of all in his development of Plato's dualism, the dividing of body and soul, and infinite free will from a finite intellect. Is it called finite or finite? Do you know? Finite. Thank you, Lucas. Finite intellect.
You trust the source now?
I do. Descartes identified his self to be placed in the intellect, in constant conflict with corporeal instincts. The inability for the intellect to grasp the complexity of desire was, according to him, the reason why humans make wrong decisions instead of the right ones. The remedy would be to do nothing, unless you are prepared with a solid logical arguments. He also believed that its intellectual mind was what would survive the bodily death and consolidate with the angels in heaven. Animals, plants, and machines, on the other hand, lacked this divine faculty and would simply stop functioning and decompose when they are out of gas, expelled from heaven, and never meet any angels. Descartes was partly right, though. His belief in an a priori method of science built on mathematical quantification instead of what our senses can experience, and his dismemberment of the human being into reason and emotion has more or less survived until our days, 458 years after his body was killed by ice in Stockholm. However severe, as mentioned before, this disaster was not exclusively caused by Descartes' distorted negligence of our senses, but to an even higher extent by Plato more than 2,000 years earlier. Most of Plato's ideas were reflected in his interpretation of his teacher Socrates' dialogues. In fact, most of the records we have from Socrates and the pre-Socratic philosophers are through Plato's often scornful and ironic account of their ideas. The simple reason for that was that philosophical ideas was not very often written down. Socrates himself even proclaimed the great virtue of distributing knowledge in speech, in dialogue, and not to write it down. This we know because Plato wrote down everything Socrates said. But to be fair, it was not all Plato's fault. He was probably most of all the product of an unfortunate development of the visual communication systems in Greek at that time. Around 800 BC, the Phoenicians were the dominating maritime merchants on the Mediterranean, and the Greeks' most important business partner. Phoenicia was the Greek name of an area embracing the coastlines of what today is Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and South Turkey. It's not sure that they consider themselves one nation, but since the Greek like to generalize, they bundle them up as one. The Phoenicians used a sign system called the Proto-Canaanite, based on Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Phoenician alphabet was both phonetic and pictogram-based, which means that each letter represented a sound. In this case, only consonants, but also depicted something that we can assert was of importance in the Phoenician culture. The first letter, Aleph, for example, was the head of an ox. Beth, the second letter, was a house. Gamel, the third letter, was a camel. The fourth, Daleth, a door. The fifth, called Hey, pictures a man with the arms in the air. The pictograms were also associated with more elaborate semantic meanings. The ox head signified power. The house meant family. The camel to gather or to walk. The door, an entrance. And the man with the arms in the air meant, hey, attention. There were, of course, more letters, over 20 in total, but these 5 just as an example. The language spoken in Phoenicia at the time and Greek belonged to 2 completely different language families. Phoenician was a Semitic language, closely related to Arabic and African languages, when Greek, on the other hand, is Hellenic, an Indo-European language, like English, German, and Swedish. We can therefore assert that the adaptation for the Greek to the Phoenician language and sign system was not one of familiarity or likeness, but rather an abstract codifying process. This is manifested in the alphabet that the Greek derived from the Proto-Canaanite, where they borrowed the shapes of the letters, their names, and phonetic sounds, but completely abandoned the iconic resemblance with culturally significant phenomena and the semantic meaning. The Greek alpha simply meant the sound A, and the numeric value 1. Beta, the B sound, and the numeric value 2, and so on. Like the alphabet, the basis of the Greek mythology was also inherited from Mesopotamian and Egyptian sources. Both in Egypt and Mesopotamia, the cosmology had an animistic origin. The gods and spirits were personifications of elements, not rulers of the elements, which they transformed into the Greek adaptation. This also meant that the mythology became abstract and mystical. By the same reason, some of the main deities from the river cultures became misplaced and unexplainable in the context of Greek culture. In the river cultures, Mesopotamia and Egypt, the river itself was obviously of a central significance. In Greece, the sea was much more important. Despite that, the Greek inherited river gods from Sumeria and from Egypt, who were central for their cosmology. Since the Greek did not have a concrete experience of rivers, having such a big importance, they invented a river encircling the world, mastered by Okeanos, the most powerful of the Titans, father of it all, a river that no one had ever seen. The humanization of the gods, the incorporation of unfamiliar elements that needed to be compensated for with esoteric deities like Okeanos, inevitably led to a vast complexity of mythological framework without connection to the empirical experience of anyone's reality, resembling the most tenacious of today's soap operas on TV, tangible only for a few and making sense for no one. When Plato replaced mythology with mathematics as the base for philosophy, it was not only to cut our culture's connection with the organic spirits of nature, but also democratization of knowledge. Basic arithmetics at that time was quite understandable for all those who were entitled to make decisions in Athens. Mythology was not anymore. Plato was born in 428 BC, the same year as another significant Greek philosopher, Anaxagoras, died. Anaxagoras was the one who brought philosophy to Athens. Anaxagoras' cosmogony was based around two principles, chaos and nous. Chaos is the mother of everything, a perpetual vortical movement, what is before and after existence. The substance of chaos is air. Nous is an ordering principle that makes consistence of chaos, makes things to come into being. The substance of nous is ether, which is the lightest substance, so light that it almost doesn't exist. All matter is made out of air and ether, and in all things are small parts of all other things. So everything consists of everything else, you could say, in infinite amounts. Plato liked the idea of nous very much, mistaking its organizing faculty for reason. He was very disappointed that Anaxagoras refused to make it the superior principle, the answer of our existence. He was not very fond of Mother Chaos, though, and her perpetual motion. He wanted it all to stop and stay still. The nous and chaos principle resembles the ideas of Friedrich Nietzsche 2,300 years later, where he describes two different powers governing our world, the active and the reactive forces. Active is the one always in motion, challenging boundaries, breaking new ground, something that always surpasses our consciousness. The reactive is holding back, making consistency of, or sometimes even destroying, the active force. As opposed to Plato and Descartes, Nietzsche defined the active force, the chaos, as the dominating principle. The reactive force still serves an important function as counterforce, but we should be aware of its will for motionlessness and nothingness, its destructive element. Since the active force cannot be captured by our intellect, but is driven by desire, Nietzsche proposed that logic and mathematics should be detached from philosophy, that its basic discourse should instead be the artistic expression. Painting, sculpture, song, and dance, not to be understood by our finite intellect, but by our infinite senses. When the French philosopher Gilles Deleuze and the psychoanalyst Félix Guattari, 100 years later, wrote their work Capitalism and Schizophrenia, consisting of the two volumes Anti-Oedipus and The Thousand Plateaux. They proposed a model based on Nietzsche's idea of the active and reactive forces, but divided in three instead of two: the molar, segmentary, and molecular forces. The molar is the reactive force that grinds and cuts the flows of active force. The molar is the will for self-likeness, autopoiesis, stagnation, and nothingness. Segmentary is also reactive, but of a softer kind. It's the organizing faculty which materializes and transforms the active force into consciousness, collects, makes order, and puts to place. The common idea about design, which many of us here tonight have as our speciality, is that it belongs to this category. But we have all of us met here at this conference to prove them wrong. The molecular force, or the molecular force, is the one that is always in motion, the nomadic, the ever-flowing energy, the divergent force, the schizo. At this point, I feel obliged to underline that when I say schizo, I don't refer directly to the diagnosis schizophrenia, but to the schizotypal quality that I believe exists to some extent in all of us. And here in this room, probably to a somehow larger extent than normal. I believe that the schizotypal quality is similar to, or even equivalent with, the quality of creativity. That the urge to continuously break up new paths in the consciousness, the urge to always move, to never be satisfied, the nomadic mind that never rests, the thoughts and impulses that refracts and diverges from the conventional apprehension of normality, the tireless questioning of the common sense, the uncensored sensitivity of what goes on in the ambient, the ability to find and connect threads that no one else sees, the ability to emphasize with and to radiate emotions. I believe that these very positive and constructive qualities are all part of the schizotypal. Schizophrenia would then be a diagnosis that occurs when these qualities are too much in conflict with a reactive, molar, constraining and destructive mechanism, such as the grinding structural framework that signifies our civilized world. The so-called disease, I exclusively, like Deleuze and Guattari, ascribe the social context of the diagnosed subject, and not as a flaw, or dysfunction within a person's mind. The illness is not in a person, but in the surrounding structures of the environment. Therefore, the means of this conference is not, like in the normal case, to adapt the schizophrenic to a mortally diseased society, but to adapt our environment, in this case our auditorium, according to the schizotypal impulse. And I hope that you are as curious and excited as me to see how this experiment may work out. With this said, I also have to add that our intention is by no means to play around with schizophrenia, neither to trivialize the suffering from the consequences associated with the diagnosis. That its consequences can be severe, I'm well aware of, partly based on my own experience. I know that the suffering is real, overwhelming, unquestionable, and suffocating, sometimes violent and sometimes terrifying. But I also know that the mind of the diagnosed can sparkle with a brightness stronger than anyone else, can twist the structures of language into a vortical winding, making you dizzy or vertigo and laugh like a horse at the same time, can play melodies on the accordion or a broken piano out of pitch that makes your tears flow, opening up the gates to the infinite melancholy in all its sadness and in all its beauty. The experiences of being confronted with schizophrenia in the close family at a relatively young age have probably caused some permanent damage that I will have to deal with for the rest of my life. But more importantly, however, it has without doubt enriched my consciousness and imagination, giving meaning to my perception of the world in a way that would otherwise not be possible. I'm convinced that my urge to draw, for example, and the impatience with which I make these drawings completely rely on this circumstance, which is also the reason why I work here. Nevertheless, this is my personal point of view based on my own experience. We are not trying to provoke or utilize the pathological aspects of schizophrenia in this conference. We will try to use its underlying mechanism constructively, and by that annihilate the destructive foundations of its cause. Anyway, back to Deleuze and Guattari. Altogether, these forces that I talked about before, molar, segmentary, and molecular, which are cosmic and constitutes our world, makes an infinite network of machines, so-called desire machines. All desire machines are connected to the other desire machines and can be part of a bigger machine and consist of smaller ones. The smallest definable part is called a body without organ, a BWO. But that it's the smallest doesn't mean that it can't be divided into smaller machines, just as they are not defined yet. Deleuze and Guattari used the egg as an illustration for the body without organ. It could also be illustrated with a white sheet of paper. What defines a machine's entity is called a disjunctive principle, something that separates an amount of stuff from the rest and creates a singularity. This principle could, for example, be how a cover designates a book from a pile of paper and makes a book machine. The principle that connects machines to each other by simple resemblance is called connective, how lots of books are bundled together and form a library. To continue the previous exemplification, the library itself would then, of course, be formed according to the disjunctive principle from before, designating it from other collections of similar things and from other buildings. The last principle is the conjunctive, which connects different things according to a somewhat less obvious scheme. For example, how the library, a church, a supermarket, some trees, a network of streets, and a couple of thousand people becomes a city, an urban machine. The machines are propelled by and at the same time producing three kinds of energies: libido, numen, and voluptas. Libido is the desire that we talked about before, the will that surpasses our consciousness, the desire that sets things in motion. Numen is the inexplicable god or goddess, the demons, the genies, the spirits, the forces that sets the conditions for our libido. Voluptas is the pleasure or the reward, the sign that the libido and numen are in a becoming process of harmonizing with each other. Voluptas can present itself in various shapes, from a soft tickle of satisfaction to the transcendence into AUB, the all-unitary being, where the universe unfolds, time ceases to exist, and all becomes one. This, of course, expressed in a lack of the proper vocabulary. What is commonly misconceived, both on the account of Nietzsche's and Deleuze and Guattari's ideas, is that they ought to be understood and explained intellectually, when what they really try to do is to challenge the heritage from Plato and Descartes by opposing the intellectual and quantifying codification of the world, and instead release our desires from the oppression of old stone tablets, formalized deities, and patriarchal scrutiny. This can barely be achieved through further analysis and rational explanations. Then you may think that this is just what I have done, and you are right. But see this only as a soft foundation, a comfortable bedsheet of nous, to give more room for the participants of this conference to experiment without conditions, in order to put Deleuze, Guattari's, and Nietzsche's visions into practice. See this lecture as our first and only sacrifice to the legacy of Plato. To this conference here in Bremen, students and teachers from 6 different art universities from 4 different countries, ENSBA, Lyon, EBABX, Bordeaux, from France, the Gerrit Rietveld Academy in Amsterdam from the Netherlands, KHU Oslo from Norway, HFK Karlsruhe, and HFK Bremen from Germany, have brought their own machines of very different kinds that we will place here in the auditorium after this talk. We will spend the next couple of days trying to connect these machines to a bigger one, to make it work in some yet undefined way, and hopefully make it transcend into a massive body without organ, without boundaries, a so-called schizo machine. I have imagined this to be done in an elegant combination of connective, conjunctive, and disjunctive principles, with a copious production of libido, numen, and voluptas, in the perfect balance between nous and chaos. It's highly possible, though, that the only thing we will create is a mess, a pile of junk that will be thrown away and forgotten once the conference is over. But that's okay. We will in any case have the opportunity to experience some very interesting lectures and performances and share some good meals together during these few days. But most of all, I'm very, very happy and grateful that we can meet here in Bremen and be together for some time. I find that a quite spectacular and amazing thing in itself. And hopefully we can return back home after the conference is over with lots of happy memories and some nice stuff in the luggage that have been produced by our machines, by the participants of the conference, its visitors, and the people of Bremen. While on the subject of returning home, I would like to continue my story. On their way back home from the successful Lutheran crusade over the continent, the Swedish army felt confident enough to take a little detour and attack the old arch-enemy, Denmark, with the prospect to conquer the southern parts of the Scandinavian peninsula, Terra Scania, East Denmark. On the paper, it seems like a stupid plan. In order to reach Copenhagen, the capital, they would not only have to confront an army that was stronger than their own, but also passed through the entire country over the big waters between the Danish islands, which at the winter time would have been very difficult even with boats. The Swedes were very lucky though. Just as they reached the city of Fredericia, where I sometimes change train on my way back between Stockholm and Bremen, at Stora Bält, the biggest water on the way to Copenhagen. An unexpected cold occurred and the water froze. Through a nightly operation, the entire army managed to walk over the ice and surprise the Danish troops before sunrise next morning. The Danes had to give up instantly and were quite lucky only to lose the eastern part of the kingdom and not the entire country. 20 years later, when the Swedish had suffered a humiliating defeat in the Battle of Fehrbellin outside Berlin, the Danes saw an opportunity to win back the territories given to Sweden in the peace treaty of Roskilde. They quickly shipped a numerically superior army over Öresund to the city of Helsingborg, supported by a force of local farmers. They quickly reclaimed the city. The Swedes stood without a chance and had to retreat south. After a month, the only city left under Swedish siege was Malmö. After some time, a supporting Swedish army in company of some Finnish trash reached the lands of Scania, but it was not going very well. The Danish troops, in collaboration with the local population, made the situation close to unbearable. As if this was not enough, on the way south, they suddenly found themselves trapped between two small rivers, and since the Danish forces controlled all the bridges, there were nowhere to go. It was now early December, and the Danes relaxed, convinced that the Swedish troops would wait until the spring before they made any further moves. But again, it became a bit colder than expected. One night, the waters froze, and the Swedish troops stormed over the ice and again managed to take the Danish army by surprise in their sleep. The slaughter that followed was without comparison. It culminated in a brutal massacre of Dutch sailors on the fields between Nöbbelöv and Valkärra before the Swedish Field Marshal Helmfelt gave order to cease fire and the Danes were defeated. After these events, Scania was permanently lost to Sweden. No more serious attempts were ever done by the Danes to take it back. Thanks to a violent Swedification process where 40% of the Scanian population died, and that the Finnish mobsters became local warlords that kept the population under control, the occupation remains until today. The Finnish warlords are still around and owns most of our lands. Among others, the fields outside Lund, where the battle once were, which is one of the world's most fertile soils for agriculture. Hopefully our struggles against the Swedes had some positive consequences though. Perhaps this was what ultimately moved the focus from northwest Germany and eventually led to Bremen's liberation from the Swedish oppression, the transformation to the free Hansastadt, which it still is. The smallest and most mysteriously outrageous Bundesland in the whole of Germany, which in turn is the reason we're all here today. So as an end and conclusion to this story, which like all other stories out there, is not completely true, but neither completely false. As a conclusion to this story, we can say that Schizotopia was actually made possible with the help of some ice. And by that, I welcome all of you to the conference, and it's a welcome so warm that the ice will finally melt. Thank you. And I would also like to take, thank you very much, Donald, a gift. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the schools and all the students that have come here, and also the students that are most of the time here from Bremen. And I want to thank the visiting lecturers and workshop holders. And of course the moderator, Barry, up in the house tree. And a special thanks to the Schizotopia class that have built this whole conference, and the Cora group, a group of students in the graduation year who have, without whom nothing of this would be possible, because I'm not so much of a segmentary person as I would like to be. So thank you very much, Cora group. But the biggest thanks of all tonight is to the reason that I'm here, that I exist. Also the reason for my interest in this subject of this conference. And this reason is 70 years old today. And I would like to say big congratulations and thank you to my mother, who is here in the audience tonight. Grattis morsan.
Tack.
Ska du få en present också?
Est-ce que mes yeux ne sont pas des légrias? Est-ce que mes photos de vacances sont vraiment sur papier glacé? Y suis-je vraiment allé ou c'est ma matrice qui les a imaginées? L'espace de mon chez-moi, mon confort, là où j'ai mes habitudes, ma carte SD. Ma carte SD est en fait mon moi intérieur, mon point de vue.
Has Maki a question? Oh, Maki, please.
My first question is, what comfort you... We need a microphone.
Shall I give you the microphone? The microphone.
Thank you very much. What comfort do you find in showing the picture of your uncle?
When I came here the first time, thank you for the question, Maki, first. I have an answer to that question, actually, I think. When I came here the first time, I didn't know anyone in Bremen, and I had never been here. I just know it from the Barry Lyndon film, where they are heading for Bremen, but they never get here, and the Stadtmusikanten also. So I wanted to bring something that I felt familiar with, and then I thought that I'd take an image of Erik, and it worked very well. A little bit of Prosecco in the morning and Erik in the conference, that was the cure of this nervosity. So that's answer enough?
Yes, second question.
Okay. Do you want to come here if you have lots of questions?
No, only
Otherwise we have to run back and forth. No?
Hello, my name is Maki, and I'm interested in what Samuel is saying, so I'm asking some questions. We understand this, yeah. So the second question is, why don't we sing Happy Birthday for your mother?
Oh, we can do that. In what language should we?
English or Swedish if you want.
Yeah. Do we have your blessing, Herr Rector?
Everybody can sing.
Should we sing Happy Birthday?
Yes.
Do we have Her name is Kerstin, which is a word that we have to use in the song, I think. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kerstin. Happy birthday to you. Ett trefaldigt leve för mamma. Hon lever. Hurra! Hurra! Hurra!
Now I have a question also. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to put my question directly after this because I think now we have to question why Samuel made a private thing of this conference? It's a private business with mother and everything here. Do you think it's okay? The principal from the school, now he makes a private thing of as his professional conference. With the students singing here for Samuel's mother. What is this? Please explain the principal, why it's disallowed here in Bremen.
Please explain to me the difference between private and professional.
This must be difficult. I have to give the microphone to his previous teacher, professor from Konstfack, Andreas Berg.
Do you want to present yourself also?
The difference between artistic practice and private. I have to pass it on to Samuel.
I think that the difference between artistic practice and private is the difference between you and me, Dorian.
He's just another avatar of me, but in another, it's not exactly the same. I think this person is not here, my avatar. No, he's not here, the other one of me. But you're here, Thomas. Thomas. He is more like me, but more quiet and more, look, can you please, Thomas, just join me here for this evening. We will spend just a few minutes in front of you, me and Thomas. Just a few minutes, you see, he is like me, but more like quiet and well-dressed, you see? Which of me you prefer, me or him, this version?
You have been asking this question to the waiter yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, and the waiter preferred him, actually.
Did he say that?
No, but I think you communicate better with him. But now this is the private and the public. Do you think that my question makes sense? Yes. Yes, of course. Whose mother is here except Samuel's mother? Do you have other mothers here? Mothers of troubles? They're not here. Why? Don't you bring your mother to this? Because I think you want to drink while you drink. So if your mothers will be here, there will not be any beer. So I think this is a problem. What do you think, principal, for this principal I have?
I would drink anyway.
But you don't drink, but the question is, do you think without drink?
It never worked.
To think without drinking. But do you drink? The principal. Yes. You drink.
Yeah. Where is it?
Now, the champagne will create pain in your brain. But I have actually a question. Now, Samuel I will give him the microphone.
Yeah.
It's his show tonight. Yeah.
And I can tell my mother that I have not drunken anything tonight, but I had a cigarette outside the school, which she saw, which was a bit of failure already. But no beers. So shall we take a 10-minute break? Are you happy? Yeah, Buddy?
Of course, I'm not happy. I'm still worried about this equation, but I think you can manage it. But for my lecture and workshop, I will think that you should not drink.
Where's your off button?
That's tomorrow.
I'm offline.
Click.
That's it.
Yeah.
We have the Oslo school here now with us. They just joined us.
And we have some bad news too, I think. That
Yes, the counselor school is still in.
they are stuck the whole night and will not arrive until tomorrow after lunch. Yeah.
So speaking of
But welcome Oslo, though. I think the break, that's up to the schizosemiosis group, but I think we said 10 minutes? 10, yeah. So see you here again in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have to question him.
Thank you.
Really touching as well.
Thanks. Oh.
Really good.
Thanks. Was it long? No, it was okay.
Really enjoyed it.
tired? Something fresh. Welcome to our schizosemiotic world. I am your guide today, and make sure that you are sitting in a comfortable position. Get ready. Now you feel nice and comfortable. Let's begin. Listen to my voice and focus on what I am saying. Watch the moving spiral and keep watching it. Try not to lose your focus. Try not to lose your focus. Your eyes become tired. You feel your eyes very heavy. Try to not lose your focus. And don't try to open your eyes. Just let them be free. Keep watching the moving spiral. More and more, you feel your eyes heavier. When I say switch, your eyes are going to close. 3, 2, 1, switch. Now you are seeing nothing in complete darkness. Breathe carefully and deeply. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Don't think too much. Just focus on how deep you are breathing. Now you are starting to feel whole of your body. You feel your foot and legs very heavy. Release the tension in the muscles. Then you feel more and more, you feel your legs lighter. Just let the tension go out all over your body. Just let the tension go out over your body. Your stomach is getting warmer. The warm energy is moving inside of you. Feel the energy moving. It's making your body warmer and warmer. It's making your body warmer and warmer. Feel your shoulder. The shoulder muscles are cramped up. So you feel now your shoulder very heavy. Let's make it comfortable. You are starting now to notice that the tension of your shoulder is going out over your body. Just feel it. Just feel it. And imagine how it is going out. Feel your warm energy inside of you. It's going to upside and going around your shoulder. The energy is going to upside and your face. Release the tension around your eyes and cheek. Your eyes are closing naturally without any force. Release all the tension in face muscles. Release the tension in face muscles. Now, whole of your body is going to relax completely. You feel now so light, like a feather in the sky. You don't feel gravity anymore. Just you're flying like a feather. Just you're flying like a feather. When I say switch, we are going to another world. Get ready. 3, 2, 1, switch. Your body is starting to fall from heaven. You can feel how fast you are. But you don't feel scared. Just you are moving to another place, which is the deepest side of you. And you haven't seen this before. Can you hear a voice inside of you? Can you find it? Can you see it? Can you touch it?
You will touch it. Now open your eyes. They say I'm mad, that I'm evil and creepy, and my genes are corrupted, and my brain is deformed, that my actions are freaky, and the behavior is not the norm. Yes, I'm you. But I'm the one always hiding. Yes, I'm you. I stand here for the truth because I believe the impossibility in the world. Yes, I'm you.
This place is very spiritual. There are spirits in each of you here. Feel their power inside. Let the spirit fill you. And try to become one with it. Now, take up a pen and write the spirit's name. On the talisman given to you. You now have 3 days left to become one with your spirit.
Does anyone want to say something? If you need to say something, just raise your hand. Before I forget, I should thank the sponsors, people who made this possible. DFJW, Jaspis, Erasmus, this school here, the school from Lyon, school from Oslo, Rietveld from Amsterdam, school from Bordeaux, Karlsruhe, who are not here unfortunately, Future Neolithic, Sani, or as you know him as Sani Nahum, Sturken Albrecht. Did I say it right? And now we have 4 machines here, which we would like to have the students present them. So there's a machine. Yes, Monkey, what's up?
I have a question about the sponsors.
Yes.
So I understand that
we didn't list you, sorry.
you know, you're thanking the schools for their participation, but could you say what the other people did?
By other people, what do you mean? Like
Jaspis or...
Jaspis paid, for example, the expenses of this man here.
Jaspis is not my mother, but it's the mother of all the artists. It means International Artist Studio Program in Sweden, and you are very welcome to apply for this, because they have actually money for artists cooperating with designers in all those fields. And I will also want to take the chance to tell you that yesterday was this man's birthday, actually. And at midnight, they switched with Samuel Mother's party. So I want you to just sing him in retrospective the happy birthday, no, happy yesterday to him. Happy yesterday to you. His birthday. Happy birthday day. Happy birthday. Happy yesterday birthday. Yeah, please help me. He had a really happy yesterday. You're enjoying, satisfied.
Can I say something? Jaspis, in other words, paid the taxi for 4 of us last night. It was raining, and he said we can pay with Jaspis money the taxi to Samuel's house. So thank you, Jaspis, for the 20 euros. Didn't you do Jaspis? Didn't you yes. Okay, so should we have like a 5 minutes? If you need longer, that would be great. For each school to present their machine. Maybe it'd be fair to go first with Bremen, then with Bordeaux, then with Rietveld, and then with Oslo, since Oslo came last. Who? What? Do they want to? Yeah, do you want to come here? Who wants to present the Bremen machine? Jonas or who? Bremen machine. No, come on. Yes, thank you, Alex. This is Alex, who's gonna play tomorrow, no? He's part of Jabolex with Jonas and Ines. Okay.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. I have only joined the machine building group very late, so I was not part of the whole process, but I think we have tried to build a tree in the auditorium, which, as Samuel mentioned already before, became more like a house now. But still it has some plant features that will be visible in a while. You can see a water pump going up, pumping water into these foam tubes where there will be plants growing. And a swing on the branch of the tree where Daniel is sitting. And I think how long is the reach of this mic? Is it reaching up to Daniel? The reach is wide. Hello, Daniel. Hi. Can you demonstrate the swing? Okay, please. So,
I can explain while swinging. So, the swing is triggering this complex mechanism here. What? Louder? I gotta start now. As you see, I swing. With Alex's help, because my feet are too tired. And then, the thing is, actually you are supposed to pump while swinging. Try to do this now. With my... yeah, it's better. You have to have some good breath here. Take some while, but maybe during the next days you're going to be more successful than I am right now. But yes, you can swing, pump. Actually, you can also make a pause and swing and pump during the pause. No water? No water. You swing, pump, trigger the thing. This one is going to be the output device for Karlsruhe. They're gonna, no.
So the water is going to come from Karlsruhe.
The
So the reason why we don't have any water is because we don't have any Karlsruhe at the moment.
Yes, that's correct.
yeah, and machines have errors, and the reason why we have this error is it's because our Karlsruhe machine is missing still. And in the next days, I think we will have less errors with the pump. And I hope... yeah, I mean that, yeah. And we are, yeah, and this movement is it's what we give to Liant. So maybe I can give the microphone to Liant.
It's good you mentioned it because I think I forgot to mention Liant. Does Liant have a machine?
Where's Liant?
Liant is here.
And where's...
I can pass this one. Come a few of you.
Good evening, everybody. So we bring a typewriter, so we will be able to just to write some text and whatever. And we also have some alcohol printing machine, so it's only for A4 formats, so it's pretty small. But we will be able to draw and write and make several copies of it. So I don't know what the sheets are gonna be up to the tree, but we'll see. Yeah, both machines are still in the trunk of the car, so we'll organize everything tomorrow, I guess. Yeah, then the sheets go to Oslo. So I don't know where are the Oslo people. maybe you can join.
Oslo here.
Can all Oslo come here?
Alienated, but alienated in the right way. That's the machine bureaucracy motto. We are the bureaucracy at the other end of the revolution, the soft pillow that revolutionary subjects can land on once the mobilization is over, state of emergency has ended, and the new everyday can emerge. Do you want to sit in meetings every day in your local community of transparent, non-alienated representative mechanisms, debating kindergarten, transport, and power supply? No. What you want is the bureaucracy machine. We realize getting high on the ecstatic moment of mobilization at 1 million people on whatever square is exciting, but we would sell our respective mothers into slaveries to see V for Vendetta 2. We want you to be able to read books, binge Netflix, and be in peace. What you need is a thick texture of smooth functioning, invisible, and alienated institutional mechanisms called bureaucracy. Let us together move from avoiding alienation to chasing the right kind of alienation. Life should be ossified, but perhaps in different structures. Embrace the iron cage of the delightful systems based purely on teleological efficiency, rational calculation, and control. Nothing feels more at home for a Norwegian than the polar night of icy darkness, as Max Weber so kindly described modern capitalist bureaucracy. And surely you love postmodern irony. What child of late capitalism does not? And what is the ironist but one who has fallen in love with his cage? Trust in us. The future is goal-oriented organizations based on rational principles used to efficiently reach their goals. Help us, help you, help us decode you in favor of the work itself, in favor of the machine.
You translated this in many languages. How many? I also saw my language. That's great. Thank you. And where does your machine lead to? Which other machine? Which school? Ah, okay. Rietveld is next. Where are you, Rietveld?
Yeah, 1 second.
Should we come there? They transported this machine by train. Bus, sorry, Flix bus. And they forgot parts in the bus, which then they produced in Bremen. It's quite impressive. It's not a joke. Do you other 3 Rietveld students want to come up?
Good.
Come here. All the Rietveld students.
So we're the retail students from Amsterdam. This is our machine, and it has many functions, basically an on-off function. And that's about it. There's a lot more than that. But basically, it just draws, you know, like it will design everything for us here, hopefully, so we don't have to do any work. And thanks for the Bremen amazing laser cutting workshop, which just helped me cut these things in like 10 minutes. So yeah, great.
You can explain maybe what you cut, because they brought these parts from Amsterdam.
Yeah, but these legs got lost in the bus, so they just quickly had to be made again, and yeah, it just happened very organized, very good.
Can you explain a bit more how it functions? Like how?
Well, you see how it functions, kind of. It turns.
Well, I mean how it's built in. Like,
well, there's like a little motor inside that turns the wheel, and then there's a pen that draws on what is on the wheel.
You normally put a paper underneath.
Yeah, you could do that. You can also not put a paper underneath, as you can see. I can imagine there could be a great collaboration with the Lyon students with their typewriter and other stuff. Because we could put that there and let it draw on that. Also, you can change the angle of the hands, and then different drawings come out and stuff like that. It's a very elaborate piece of machinery.
And what are the legs made out of?
The what?
The legs.
It's actually a Bremen chair. I found it in the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna steal it?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Any question? It'd be good if you have some questions, I think. Anyone has it? Maki, do you have a question?
Could you possibly can we put any pen that we want on?
Yeah, hopefully anything that fits in the hole.
Okay. Can it be a really fat pen then?
The hole is quite small though, but I think we can figure something out.
Can it be another color?
Yeah, definitely other colors and possibly some brushes and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can definitely try. Of course.
Now, of course, I have to have another question. And my question is about, this is a machine or automata?
Right, I just want to say that I second that question, because in German there's, in English as well, yeah, what's the difference between a machine and the automat? Automatic?
This machine is like based on the chess playing machines, you know, chess? What's the name in English? Shachmat. What's the name? Chess machines, you know those? They have, the humans tried all times to invent some kind of intelligent machines, like playing chess. And this automata. You know, they was fake. They was fake. It was having a man in a computer nowadays. But it's like very expensive. You need lots of Chinese people for every computer. You don't have any in this machine, nobody in there. The atoms, it turns back. But this is, I'm really amazed by this. Not because it's the first one I've seen. This Jan Tingerli made this kind of stuff. You have in the front of Modern Museum in Stockholm. Have you been there in Stockholm? We have a big one in front of the museum. But those people, they build this without knowing that it's already done. And this is...
No, we had the Tingerli comparison before, and we don't really accept it. It's completely different.
Yeah, of course, but this is like creating a child that is your child, nor another body's child, yeah? This is your child, it's a group. Is this a group? You participate to this? Huh? Surely. And all of you have a kind of contribution to this.
Yes.
I'm really amazed that you could make a kind of decision, take decision to do exactly this.
Yeah, we had a meeting in a group, and then Alex is actually the assistant. He's the engineer of the thing.
But who was made the proposal? I want to just to ask some of yours here. Did you vote on this machine? Just take the microphone. Did you put your vote on this?
It's not a democracy.
Because this is also my theory that art is not democracy, yeah. So you approve me, you disprove me, right. Then the brain taking decision is not democratical decisions, all the brain parts are participating and taking the correct decision. Huh? Some parts just do it. I'm not accusing you for something, but some people here feel that it was not my decision, it's not my work. How many of you feel this is my work and this is not my work? Huh? Can you raise your hand? Who feels this is my work? I feel this is my genetic, you know, like you're a child. If it was a child, you feel this is my child. I'm really serious about this. How many of you can say this is my child? And how many of you can say this is not my child? Of course, but I'm really interested in this because, you know, creating artworks in group is like in having group sex, and all of the people involved will feel this is my child. Huh? It makes sense? Huh? You have group sex, you can do, somebody will get pregnant. And the one will get pregnant, yes, you don't can have thousands of fathers, huh? Or hundreds of fathers. Of course, but this is all creating a group, working at a design group or an artist group. I'm really against making art in groups. I work alone. Huh? You see me against them, yeah? I know, this is my work and this is yours. But this is really good work for this project, and also the other ones with alcohol. In that other one with water, I have some comments that people don't want to pump because we know why. You don't have the desire, the machine. Then you need a desire, yeah? People will not work for free.
You make work with other people because you have work with your children.
Of course, my children are like this. They can draw themselves. Yeah, I made my children. They do this. Yeah, but I cannot control them. Huh? If I say you put like this, they say no, Papa, I will work like this. So this is kind of the humans always wanted to create like this. And artificial intelligence is also built on further on this kind of automata. Yeah? So this is the origin of trying to create robots and everything. So this is really good example. It's a very small one, but it's about that machine. But
you like it, Dorina?
Because this don't need.
What do you like about it?
This is in a way just you press the button and it works and it looks like a machine. It's really pedagogical and you can switch off, like with the lights. And it's like the universe. They say the universe is created by a God with the originally Big Bang. Huh? The finger of God, yeah, do you see? Yeah, this in religion they say the God is just, who was the philosopher that original press put on, yes, there are some philosophers also believed that the universe should be created by a God, that and the origin just started the universum and then it's running on. And in that universe you have to jump, to pump, yeah? So this is an automatic universe.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you too. But
okay. Does anyone else besides Maki and Dorina have a question? Be good to yes.
Okay. Question for all of you on stage right now. How do you feel that this turned into a critique all of a sudden? I have a question for you, actually. I'm wondering why you commented this one as being completely mechanical and automat, as you said. Is it just because it's running with like energy on its own, or is it because you didn't comment the one that were like human energy based? So do you see like mechanical as being like energetic, or human be a machine also?
Actually, I didn't have the time to put my question there because I don't want to question everything. But I realized from the beginning that if instead of water they would use beer, beer, everybody will be there if it's a beer pump, If the pump will pump beer, everybody will be there, Because the desire, the machines have to have the kind of desire, to make human to work. So that is the problem. And then the other ones come with drawings using alcohol. Huh? Who was the Norwegian ones? Huh? Liant. Liant. L'alcohol, le cognac or le vin de Borsen. What the kind of? Borsen is the cheese. Sorry, you understand?
I think that was a sign from God that you should sit down. Yes. Too much alcohol talk. Okay. We have one more. Okay. Thank you, guys. Shall we go to... Benjamin, should we come there or do you want to come here? Where's Benjamin?
Let them come.
What?
Let them come.
You come here first.
Quelqu'un veut venir avec nous?
Hey, we have to be serious now. There's a presentation. We can laugh after. The Bordeaux class, they are going to talk about their machine. Does Benjamin want to come here?
Benjamin, you want to
come here?
Come, Benjamin.
It's the teacher, Benjamin. Come here. Both Benjamin.
Well, hi everybody. So we're from Bordeaux, and we brought with us a live stream machine. So we're connected to all of you by the lens of the camera, and it's going live on the internet. So I don't know how to do this really. Just it's machine. We have computers and sounds and cameras and things like this, and we kind of follow you everywhere on what you're doing and put and put our own stuff too. Some I don't know what else to say.
Where is it going live? On like social media or you have like a school website?
Oh, we have a channel named Labor Zero Labor, and it's live on it.
What's the channel?
We put it on the Facebook page of Schizotopia. It's the link of the channel on YouTube, so you can go watch it or watch yourselves.
You can watch it also after.
Yeah, after,
Okay.
after, yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Is that the camera over there?
Yeah, is that the camera?
It's still going on?
Yes.
Ah, sorry. Do you want to say something live? You're very into Instagram. Are you embarrassed? Yes. Maki, first question. You can also ask it in French.
How do you see it? Did you know about the other machines before?
Yeah, we had a very brief of all the machines that were going, especially of Karl Schur, who's not here, because we knew exactly what they planned to do. But all the others, a little bit of Bremen one, a little bit of the others, but not as much. We discovered like time by time in here.
Because I can see that your machine can quite easily connect with any of the other machines, but looking at the presentation of the machines now, in your view, do you have any idea of how it can be more specific, or like a beginning of an idea of, because it works, but maybe something came up in the last 20 minutes?
Yeah, we are kind of still thinking about it by looking what the others are doing, and then we have some ideas that's not quite solid now, but that's going to be something after. So specific pro now, I don't really know. It's not really the case, but it's coming.
It's the only school where we also invited the tutors. Do you want to say something about your input to the students' work? To Benjamin. To Benjamin. Yes, but the only two we brought on stage. I know Olivier is here. You're here.
It's a very low input. Soft pedagogy. They know what to do. They need teachers to sign papers. Mixed.
It is mixed.
Bachelor.
Does the student want to ask a question from any of the schools? No?
Really nothing.
Or can they see anything behind the screen? Oh.
We're gonna add more cameras every day, and they're gonna move every day. So you will never know when you're filmed and when you're not filmed. So if you don't want to be filmed, just like, I don't know, put a mask or like, just leave.
We can also connect to perhaps 80% of the cell phone in the room and access to any cameras in the cell phones. No, for real. Yes. Yes, it is. And it's live.
Say something. Yes, of course.
Of course, because I can see here a history of the machine. Actually, it's really nice. It's not probably just what's the name of when you see something historically, chronologically, but you can see the development of the machine. And I'm really happy for you having the video cameras and computers, because what I told here, this was the steps that humanity took to create artificial intelligence. And those that machine is also kind of working with horses and human power, you have to motivate them. This is true, because human beings, they did something, using people, slaves and animals to do heavy job. And this is, also the channel is working at work, what's that? Working on who's working for whom. Oh. But anyhow, what I'm trying to say that I'm really happy that I can see the development of machines and automata, and also that it proves that what we are creating and what is also the schizophrenia probably about the machines outside, because the machine controls us. Even me, I don't have the schizophrenia diagnosis, but I can see that in a way, probably the meaning of the life is to create artificial intelligence. And I think almost the people can, what's the meaning of the life? Yes, just to create non-life that is intelligent. And why? Then I will tell you later if you attend my workshop. Because I have a theory, actually. But the people who want to join the workshop should not drink, I think, before I drink. or you can think is that you are disturbing your workshop.
No. I'm translating what you said to me in language française.
Français. Parlez-vous français? Hein? Parlez-vous français?
Oui.
Je regrette, je ne parle pas français. But you can translate it. Okay. But can you make just a sentence in France? But I said, just to explain everybody what was the idea.
Les gens ne doivent pas boire pendant votre workshop. Ah, so you speak French. Je comprends un petit peu quand même. Bon, ok. Donc, question?
We're apparently the only school who are not here with tutors and also not with our mothers. I was just asking myself if this is a 24/7 thing, if we have to be scared when we go out tonight that we are like captured on camera and like being broadcasted live to the world, or if this like does start or end to a certain point. Yeah. And if it starts and ends, when and due to what reasons? Yeah. Or should I ask now? Yeah, I was wondering, you said we can access the live with our own cameras, but then there's still somebody who's speaking what's being broadcasted, right? Okay, so you have a control on the thing still. Okay.
I can reply to the first question here about the 24/7 thing, or 24/4. It's 4 days. I think that you should really be aware of being controlled, especially if, like you mentioned, if you go out tonight, because we have a class, a lecture here 11 tomorrow, and you all need to be here. So you're watched by the Bordeaux TV channel. Last question? No last question? What? What was your question? You have a question? What's up with you now? These ritual questions are coming up.
What was the maximum number of viewers you managed to reach with your previous streaming? Ah, ok. Vous avez fait... C'était quoi votre record de vues? On n'a pas trop fait attention en fait. Non, dans les previous ones. Ah oui, ce soir.
1 million.
Je sais pas, quelqu'un a fait attention à ça ou pas?
Excluding yourself.
On a English.
On fait pas ça pour les vues. The revolution is online.
So, can I... The first question was, is 24/7 or does it stop? Oh yes, it's 24/4. And we have recording of you doing things and you not knowing you were filming. Yeah, give us power. Yeah.
There's one more question.
Oh.
Hey, could everyone give...
I think it's maybe good to introduce who's asking what. So what's your name and are you...
Yeah, my name is Finn. Could everyone of... I'm artist. Yeah. I'm drawing here and making stuff. Yeah, could everyone give me from you a sound from your favorite animal?
am I really doing this now?
You don't have to do anything. Only if you feel it.
Can I just say it's a cat? Am I supposed to meow and... so, hey, it's a cat. I'm not doing this. I'm sorry. Exactly. I agree with this. Why?
Can you make your favorite animal noise? Is it a motorcycle? Or a broken speaker? Samuel, do you think this is enough for... Maybe they should say one more comment, because I think you were bombarded. Do you have a question for them? The audience. You should ask everyone to make an animal noise. Okay, everyone make an animal noise at the same time. I'll count from 3 to 1. Wait.
Oh,
3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we are done with this. Now, you have a question.
Yeah, you just finished it.
And now we have a performance by 2 Thomases, which is in segment 6.
I'm looking for
where we had dinner.
Please, give me...
Should we go there right now? Let's go where we had dinner in 10 minutes for the last event tonight. It's a performance by Thomas and Thomas. Yes, thank you.
my life.